Either way.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Breathe and Air podcast, where everyday action meets extraordinary mindset. Today, we have Mr. Mike Roberts, aka the Converse Cowboy, coming in. Mike, thank you so much for checking out and coming and have a little conversation with us today.
Absolutely, my man. Well, thank you for the invite, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit pre-show. It's crazy, a lot of parallels in what you do with, all of your content that you push and the mindset side of things as well. But, before we really get into it, I want to talk about, why the Converse Cowboy? What helped you come up with that?
The which aspect of it, the name or the show or like?
Yeah, so we'll talk about, I just want to know why Converse? Why Converse? Well,
okay,
what was the thing on that? Yeah.
So Converse, shout out to the Converse. And of course,
Converse.
I'm into the horse thing and cowboy stuff, and I wear cowboy hats. And honestly, like the name came from I'm from West Monroe, Louisiana. There's a lot of rednecks around here, and I was at a house party, and some drunk redneck, when I walked in, was like, oh, he's like popping off. He said, what do you think you are, the Converse Cowboy? And I looked at him. I was like, that's pretty good, man.
Yeah.
Fast forward 3 years, I'm trying to come up with a name for this show, and that name stuck in my head, and so here we are.
Yeah, no, I love that. It has such a ring to it, and it's something you
well, and it's like a play on words too, right? So I was thinking like cosmic cowboy, conscious cowboy, something along those lines. And I was like, Converse, it can be converse, because we are conversating on the show, and then of course the Converse. So
I like that. Yeah. So you mentioned the podcast host as well. You have a podcast show, you have a great following there. And then also, you do the videos on YouTube, and you've been creating this content. So tell us a little bit about why that came to be. Like, what made you want to start doing this?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the idea, I guess, sat in my head for a while, and I went through this really dark time. I went through a divorce, and just like, well, I'm not going to say rock bottom. Rock bottom was a long way away, but it felt pretty shitty, and so the idea sat in my head for a while, and it was a lot of fear and resistance and worries, like, to start this thing. And the why behind it, the why is like to scratch my own itch, to be able to use this platform to sit down with people, because I'm hyper curious by nature, to be able to sit down with people and get them to answer my questions, as selfish as that may be. Yeah. But the stronger why behind it, a little more altruistic, is to provide value to other people, and so whenever I get myself in a rut, or I'm getting down on myself, or feeling the bad thoughts or whatever, when I can have enough conscious awareness to put my energy on somebody else or to somebody else in a positive way, it's crazy. It's like a superpower. It's like all those fears and worries go away, It's a long answer to your question, but that's what essentially got it started.
Yeah, no, I feel that definitely. It's a powerful thing when you feel like you're having an impact on other people. And like you said, selfishly, when I started this too, it's like, I'm getting all this free advice. I'm talking to incredible people, making great connections. Like, you guys say this show is helping you a lot, but you don't even understand how much it's helping me on my journey as well. And
right.
We just started a little segment called Letters to Me. And it's like, that's really, if you think about it, the whole thing, like, these are things that I'm saying to myself that are just reverbing and helping others at the same time.
What is that about? If I heard you right, you said letters to me?
Yeah. So I was thinking of ways to come up with more content and, push more stuff for the audience. And it was one of those things where usually we have guest formats like we're doing today. And this is just short excerpts where I'm talking and basically talking to myself and letting people in on the thoughts and things that I have. Yeah. So it's a letter to myself that, last week was about emotions. So like controlling your emotions and knowing that they're temporary and those kind of things. So just stuff that I have to remind myself daily that I think, would help other people as well.
I love it, dude. Yeah, I love it, man. I used to do, and I was actually journaling this morning about it. Do more vlogs is what I was writing to myself, because I used to do the vlogs, and it would be like a recap, like what did I learn from this interview? What did I learn this week? Anything that was going on. And for me, like you just said, it was a lot about the growth, to be able to open up and share that with somebody. as humans, I don't know, like I feel like we fear what others may think about us going through this certain thing, like we may be on this island. But what I've learned is people are grateful that you're sharing it because they're going through the same shit, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
We're all human. We're all going through something. Everybody's struggling with something on some level. And so it is a therapeutic for whoever's listening. And I think it's therapeutic for whoever it is that's sharing.
Yeah, there's a lot of power and vulnerability. And that was something that when I started this, it was part of what is the things that I've been putting up for the world to think I am that I'm not actually. How am I actually feeling? What's the authentic side? And when you let go of that, it's extremely freeing, because it's like, this is who I am, take it or leave it. I mean, some will leave it, some will take it, but at least it's you.
Yeah, for sure. Like you're right. There is a freedom in that. And that is something that is not like, it's not a destination. Like you don't get to that place and you're like, okay, I am me and I'm my most authentic self and I'm good now. No, fuck that. Like the practice, man. Like crazy enough, like I thought you could get to that place once upon a time in my life. I was like, oh yeah, well this and this, if I check this box, that equals happy. Newsflash, that place doesn't exist.
Yeah. No, we're bouncing all over. I knew this conversation was going to flow like this, but I shouldn't even take
Sorry,
a
man. I don't mean to.
No, I love it. This is how I prefer it. But when you said that, it reminded me of something that I wrote down when I was listening to some of your content, that, you know, there is no destination, no goal or money that can replace flow and doing what you love. You know, you said that in your little intro. Yeah. And I thought that was super powerful. It's really just what you said there, but dive a little bit deeper into that, like about the journey.
Yeah. So the journey, this entire life is a journey, you know, and in vlogs, I've talked about this before. Hang on one second. My dog's got this damn tennis ball. I don't know if you can hear
you're
it.
good.
Hey,
you're good.
Hey, buddy, let me get that ball from you. Yeah, I got a new puppy. And been sleeping all day, so he's full of energy right now.
What kind of dog did you get?
Come here, buddy. He's a border collie. It's Rookie.
Oh, look at that. What's up, Rookie?
Yeah. Hey, buddy.
That's a good looking pup.
Yeah, man, he's fun. It's been a lot of fun. So yeah, the journey is the destination. Like when that hit, like when that came to me and I really understood what that meant, like I said, I had a good job. It was paying good. Damn, he's got another ball. Where's he finding these things? Come here, buddy.
It's a resourceful pup.
And I apologize. I think that's all of the balls.
You're good.
Like I said, I had the job. I was making relatively good money, 6 figures. I had the company car, good insurance. I married a pretty girl, and her family had a successful business. Like that should equate to happy, is what I thought. And I wasn't. Like that did not equal happy for me. And when we got married and I had all the things, I feel like I kind of checked out of life, you know, like because I thought you could. Like, I don't know, I was through social conditioning. That's what I was taught, like that is the American dream. And maybe it is for some people, but like for me, I had to go through those things in order to get to this place that I'm at now. And not that I haven't figured out now, but I'm more aware now. I went through a very dark period, and through that, you have a choice, as anybody does. Like I'm not like the only person to go through this dark time and come out on the other side and figure things out, but I had a choice. Like it was hard for me to get out of bed in the morning, dude. Like I didn't want to see anybody. I didn't want to go to work. Like it was to that point, and I grieved for a long time, and then slowly kind of crawled out. And I don't know, like it's the universe, it's a God thing. The right people started getting in my life, and the right things, the right books, mentors, and it led me down this path. And I'll use the word enlightenment. I'll throw that out there, just for the lack of a better word, but like it really expanding my awareness, expanding my mindset. What is this thing? What is this thing we call life? Why are we here? Like started really looking for a deeper meaning. I don't know that anybody can answer it. I don't think anybody fucking knows. I have an idea of what makes me happy. I have an idea of the things that bring me joy. It's not external. I do know that. Like, I know it comes from within. And so the journey is the destination. Like I say that a lot on the show, and I like to write a lot. And people ask me, or they'll message me and they'll say, hey man, I heard you say this a lot. I didn't really know what it meant. I'm starting to kind of figure it out, and so 1 second. Hey buddy, come on. Let's kennel up. Oh, good boy. Hope you can edit this.
No, you're good. We can
All right,
edit it.
he's in his little house now, so I don't know. Does that answer some of what you're
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah, no, you're fine. I'm interested into the flow side of things because, it's a state of mind that, I used to play football. I played sports my whole life. That was my thing. Right. And when that was taken from me, it was like, okay, let's look at ourselves in the mirror. Who's your identity? Like, who are you outside of this thing that you've put so much of your life into? But yeah. I think back about that. And one of the most incredible parts of playing sports is flow, right? You get into that place, playing music. There's few things that you could do where you really do tap into flow state. And it's like time goes away. You get tunnel vision. You feel like nothing else exists in the world, right? In a world that's constantly pushing at us for our attention. What are some ways that you've been able to tap into flow, or what are some things that help you get into a flow state, should I say? Yeah.
Well, I'm curious, where'd you play football at?
I played right outside of St. Louis at a university called Lindenwood University. It's a Division II school up there. Yep.
Right on. So I played baseball through college, and I didn't know that was the term at the time. Like, I didn't know what that was that I was experiencing, like where I step on the diamond and like everything just slows down and time no longer matters. And when that went away, when I was told like, you're not good enough to play anymore, that was a dark time. That was depressing. And it wasn't just that. It was like the camaraderie in the locker room and the guys, like everything I had known in life was stripped away. And so I didn't understand it. Like, I didn't know. I was like, why do I feel this way? What is that feeling? And we're going to do this one more time.
Oh, very good.
Hopefully he's far enough.
You're good.
Outside.
No worries.
So yeah, then I started trying to hunt that feeling again, right? And I still journal about it today. Like, I don't know that I found anything that matched what I had back then. Because why? Because what is flow? It's when skill and the unknown meet. Like, when the outcome is unknown and skill matters. To me, that is flow. And so when I played baseball my entire life, I had this intuition like about the game and like this knowledge. And so now I am into like cutting and the performance horse world. And yes, that does allow me a little taste of it. But my intuition isn't what it was in baseball. And it's not what the other guys that I'm competing against have.
Yeah.
But that does allow me a little bit of the taste of that, like the competition. I find it too, though, man, like whenever I'm riding, whenever I like to ride a lot, like I'll just kind of lose track of time. Man, lately I've been riding for like 2 and 3 hours.
Wow.
And like my last line is like, I really don't want to get up right now. Like, I still want to keep riding, but I got shit I got to go do. And so, that's for me. That's, what about you? Like, what is your definition?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, I started getting into meditation and breath work, and, I still love to train like I did. I train differently, but I still love to train. I feel like I get a little bit of taste of that whenever I'm really locked into a hard workout and training. Golf sometimes gives it to me, because it's super mental, and especially if I'm out there with some guys, even if we're having beers and fun, I'm still competitive as hell and want to win. And so it comes down to the last 5 holes and it's close. Like, I can get locked in again. So, there's certain things. And like you said, for growing up, I was always, I played baseball, played basketball. And the thing with football was you couldn't replicate that feeling. Right. And I had a coach tell me one time, it's like, this is the only time you're going to be able to legally commit assault.
That's
and
true,
so,
right?
and so it's, you can have the pickup basketball games and stuff, but once it's done, no one really wants to throw their body out there on the line again when you're not getting paid for it in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, that's a good one. I don't know if I would say when I meditate it is flow. I feel like that more is just like cutting off all the sensory stuff that we get and like tapping into another consciousness per se. But flow to me is like when you're actually up, moving, like everything, like you said, you're in an intense moment, but everything seems slow. So
have you read any of I get his name messed up, Chick Sent Me High, I think is how you pronounce it.
I don't know if I have.
Sent Me High. He wrote a book, I think it's on my
Send me that one. Yeah.
He wrote a book called Flow. He wrote another book called Creativity, but he's like the godfather of flow and the study of it and what it is. And then Stephen Kotler's got quite a few books out about it too. The Rise of Superman, The Art of Impossible.
Yep, I've heard of that.
I like this. Yeah. Running is something I got into, man, and that allows me to tap into it.
Yeah, there's definitely the runner's high there. My knees are bummed, but I need to get back to it.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. I had a couple surgeries and it's tough. I had to try and figure out ways the concrete is not forgiving for my joints. I'll just say that. But I have heard it. A lot of my buddies are avid runners and they're just like, man, I'm the runner's high, right? The quote unquote runner's high that people get. I
read a book by David Goggins. Do you know that name?
Oh yeah, I know Goggins.
He wrote a book called Can't Hurt Me. And that is that is what got me into running, and one thing he says in there is, as humans, we only push ourselves to about 40% of what we're capable of. You may have heard him say this, but and he was right. I don't even know if I was pushing myself that hard, because the first time I went to run, and again, like I played baseball in college, so I ran before, never really liked it. Never thought I would run again after, honestly. And so I read this book and I'm all fired up to go run. And I get about a half a mile in, dude, and I can't fucking breathe. What is going on? I just want to quit. And I stick with it. That was about 2 years ago. And I ended up meeting up with a running group here around town, a bunch of badasses. They ran in college. Oh. And like, we'll do 10 Mile Friday. And like, you get to mile 5 and like, it's kind of starting to hurt and pushing it. And then it's like, you go 4 miles and it's like, what happened? You know what I mean? Like time just disappears and you're in this flow state. And that, like, I like to set an intention, almost like a meditation is how I treat it. Like if I've got a podcast coming up or if I have something business-wise I want to think about, I'll set an intention and almost use that as a way to manifest an idea or something creative,
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like a lot of my creative ideas and thoughts really get going whenever I'm pushing myself physically.
Yeah, for sure.
I really feel that. Like there's times in the gym where I'll have to stop and write something down just because like I'm so focused into something and then something pops in my head. Cause I feel like that's just us giving ourselves creative space.
Yeah.
Other times we're so locked in and trying to do 3 things at once, but if you're just focusing on one thing, it allows time and space for other ideas to come in. So I always feel, I've said that for a while. I always feel like a lot of creativity flows when I'm pushing myself physically.
Yeah. And I think there's a balance for everybody, like the mind, body, there's some symbiotic chemistry going on there, because I'll say like last week I was on the road for a week. I left my fucking running shoes, which is a lame excuse. I know I could have went and bought some, but I didn't. And I didn't run. And my mind kind of got foggy. I started like, I don't know. I got in my own way a lot, and I journal just about every day. And it came out today. I was like, why did I feel that way? Like, what was that about? And I think it was that. I think it was lack of movement, lack of doing something.
Yeah. There's definitely something to it. You've mentioned journaling a lot. When did you start getting into journaling?
Yeah, sorry, I nerd out on it, man. I'll say this. So I look back and I have a journal from 2007. And there was a few pages I scribbled on, and then fast forward to 2009, you see another entry. Fast forward to 2011, there's another entry, and it's like here and there. And then about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I started journaling every day. And it's something for me. It's very therapeutic. It's something that allows me to get my ideas down on paper. It allows me to explore my own mind, you know. I think I read a quote the other day. It said, "I don't know what I think until I'm able to read it." I know I butchered that. It's something like that. Like, I don't know what I think until I read it. So I don't even know who said it, but it's true. Like, I have copious notebook and books and just scribble that doesn't make any damn sense probably. And but I never go back and look at, or I rarely go back and look at what I write either.
Yeah. That reminds me, I have a mentor of mine. He's probably going to listen to this episode, so shout out if he is. But I was just talking to him the other night, and I said, you know, one of the biggest things that made a huge impact on me was our very first meeting. We met at a little Starbucks on the corner. He's showing me his journals, right? And he's saying, like, they're very plotted out. Like, here's my goals for this, like mental, physical, spiritual goals. Like, here's some numbers stuff and like creative stuff. And he's like, hold on one second. Goes out to his car, comes back, brings back a journal from 2003, from early 2000. So it's same format, like exact same thing. So it made a huge impact on me, you know, a really successful guy. I'm like, wow, there's really something to this. And for probably about the same as you, 2-3 years now, I've been writing in journals, you know, writing thoughts, ideas, anytime I feel super anxious about something, or anytime something creative comes, or, you know, especially in the mornings as well, like writing down gratitude and what I'm thankful for, and intentions for the day. Like you said, intentions, right? So like before I go to bed, what do I want to get done tomorrow? Write that stuff out. So it doesn't leave me any room for stupid shit, right? I can just check off the list and I can be formulated. And I think there's a fine balance between that too. I guess it's a little off topic, but, you know, like, do you think there's a balance between being really regimented and then allowing yourself to do the most random, you know, crazy stuff on the blink of an eye? Because I think there's like, I've toyed around with it a lot, like being monk-like or just being, you know, out there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think you hit polar opposites, and then like you find your center. But I journal and think about that one a whole lot, you know, because I'm very structured, I'm very organized. But yeah, I think it's important to let yourself go, like go to the camp on the weekends and just kind of turn loose, or go do something that you wouldn't normally do. And that's something hard for me. I'm saying this like it's advice, like I'm not preaching to anybody, but it's something that I practice, right? Like it's something that I try to do. So I'm a real estate investor by day, very regimented with what I do. And then I'll leave for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks just to see if I can let go and surrender. And then also to test these systems that I put in place with my business, you know? But yeah, that's a great question. And it's something that I think it's a practice that's, maybe you can master it. But I think it's constantly evolving. Like wherever your center is, it's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
It should be.
I read Matthew McConaughey's, I guess, autobiography, Green Lights. Yeah. He talks about that a lot. I mean, he went to the extremes sometimes, but going to the Amazon and stuff, but same concept, different scale. But I think it is giving yourself that space to explore those things in the right environment, and, you know, allowing yourself to be able to explore that creativity, but also be able to say, okay, I had this taste of it, and now let's check back in and get regimented again, or however you want to do it. But yeah, that's definitely something I'm constantly exploring. And the idea of balance is, for me, I feel like balance is huge in life in a lot of areas. But at the same time, I have this side of me that says, no, like, fuck balance. You need to be all the way in. Like, you need to dive into the deep end on this project or this thing or whatever you're doing, and forget about everything else for like however long of a time. Like, I think there's a lot of value in that as well. So it's a juggling act.
It is. Well, yeah. It is. And I don't know if there's one right answer. Like, I ask musicians that a lot. Like, how do you how do you deem your time as productive or non-productive? Like, how do you, because you could be hanging out, riding a horse at a rodeo, and a fucking idea comes to you for a song. Well, now that time is now deemed productive because now you got a hit. You know, like I interviewed Cultural Wall a while back, and he said like that's when a lot of ideas come to him, when he's just on the ranch hanging out, you know. And so you may think it's dicking off or like not being productive, and that's the artistic sense, you know. As an entrepreneur in business, it may be a little bit different, but I do think you can have creative ideas in business that come when you least expect it. But I think to be able to catch it, like your antenna has to be up. You got to be aware that that's there. You know?
Yeah, that's huge. You spoke, you mentioned Coulter Wall. I saw you did one with William Clark Green, and you have a lot of artists that have come onto your show and, played live music and expressed their ideas, and a lot of great stuff, y'all. If you haven't checked it out, go over to his Instagram at the Converse Cowboy. Really good content over there, especially if you love music. So tell me a little bit about where your love for music came from.
And I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know that I could pinpoint any one thing. I guess, I think back, like growing up, like when we'd wake up in the morning, my dad had this surround system and sound system in the house with these big ass speakers. And my mom worked nights. She worked at the hospital. So it'd just be us, like me, my brother, and my dad. And he'd be cranking like CCR, Zeppelin, what else? Jim Croce was another one. And then like just some random stuff like KT Oslin, and my dad was kind of a dick to us. Like he'd wake us up with like cold water, ice water. Like when we wouldn't get up, he'd just drip that cold water on us, And like, fuck. And so we'd wake up and like that music's cranking. So I guess like subconsciously that's where it stemmed from. I've never really thought about that. Good question. But I think that's where it started. I wish I would have picked up the guitar earlier. It's one of those things. I'm kind of jealous of those guys that did pick it up early. They have like talking about intuition, like they have an instinct with music. And
it's like a extension of them, like the guitar or the piano is an extension of them, and it becomes second nature too. I wish I would have picked it up a little earlier as well. When did you start playing?
I picked up my first guitar in college.
Me too.
Just learned the basic chords, and then I put it down for a while, and then you go. I think like everybody, you learn a few songs, and then you get stuck there, and you don't get over that hump, because you're like, I don't want to get bored. Like I'm just sitting there playing this stuff. I don't want to learn music theory. I just want to play these songs.
Yeah.
When really, I wish I would have learned music theory because I'd be so much further along now, But I recently started taking lessons with Daniel Donato. I don't know if you know that name. He's there in Nashville and a badass guitar player, man. He's a badass. And anyway, and a great teacher, very good teacher. So I'm trying to do the things. I'm trying to stay consistent,
Yeah, I agree. I remember I was actually listening to a podcast the other day. They were talking about, everyone had someone they knew whose mom put them through piano lessons at an early age. And you're like, oh, why do I got to go to piano lessons? Like, I don't want to do this. And I was definitely that, my mom put me through piano lessons. And even then when I was young, really young, I just learned by ear. Like it was just musically inclined, like listen, see it, feel it, play it. And I wish I would have actually spent the time to learn how to read the music now, because I could have replicated a lot of that stuff. But to this day, it is a play by feel thing for me. I think surprisingly, I don't know if you've asked this question to some of the artists, but I feel like a good handful of artists, are pretty definitely intuitive and play by ear too. I may be wrong.
No, I would agree. I don't know that I've asked that, but I think I would agree. Like they can jump in with another band and they're going to figure it out.
Yeah, that's it. It's the band chemistry is always interesting. The lead guy may be more of a rhythm with the thought process, and then you have a guy that's really, really actually knows music and knows how to read it and compose it. And that's where he comes in and says, all right, play this key, play this. I'm going to riff off this with that, try to mix this up. But he didn't actually create the original idea. He's just like seeing it and then picking it apart. Yeah. So it's just like a football team, right? You got to have a team around you sometimes to help.
Yeah, I agree.
So we mentioned earlier, like the NCHA futurity stuff and kind of getting into horses and that being something that, you've started to get into and be passionate about. When did that come about? Was that something from childhood or?
Well, yeah, so my grandparents had a farm growing up, and they had a couple of horses out there, but they didn't know shit about horses or horsemanship. And anybody that rides horses will know what I mean when I say that. Like, it's a good thing. I was always interested in it, and they sold their horses. And I was always, as a kid, I was always asking for a horse. I wanted a horse, and they had this little Shetland pony that I'd ride around a little bit, but that was the extent of it. And my parents didn't know anything about horses, and I played sports all the way, through my childhood. And so fast forward to I'm 30, I get married. I marry a girl who has their family has a large ranch here in Louisiana. And with that comes full-time cowboys. And I got to be really good friends with those guys, and they all team roped. And so I started team roping, and that's where like my introduction to the horse world started. And just fell in love with it, man. Got hooked right out of the gate. And that led to some work in cow horse shows, some ranch horse shows. And then a few years later, I'm into cutting now. So it's a very addicting sport.
It is. For those who don't know what cutting is, dive into it a little, explain.
Oh man, you're gonna put me go check out a YouTube video of cutting. That's what I do to people. They're like, friends of mine are like, what is cutting? And I'm like, man, it's hard to explain. Like, let me show you this YouTube video.
Yeah, it's more of a visual thing.
Essentially, I'll attempt it. Like, essentially, you ride in a herd, you have 2 minutes and 30 seconds. You have 4 turnback guys, and you cut out a cow, 1 cow at a time. You ride in the herd, you cut it out, keep it away from the herd, you drop your hand. So it's pretty much all your horse doing the work. It's a lot of feel and timing involved. And you worked anywhere between 2 and 3 cows until the buzzer goes off, and then you're scored. There's judges that judge your run based on technique and the rules and style. So it's very subjective. Which I don't much care. I wish that part was different, but I don't know that it can be. But that's cutting in a nutshell.
Yeah.
But YouTube will show you.
The power of YouTube, right? YouTube University.
Yeah.
I like to call it. You just spent some time up in the stockyards. What's the 411 on Fort Worth, Texas? I know we have a lot of listeners actually out of Dallas. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I love the stockyards. Great place.
I bet you could say more than I could about that, but I don't know. There's something about it's just like the nostalgia of the stockyards and knowing the history that, the millions of cows that were brought through there. And it's just a cool place to be. I mean, we're in 2021, but it somewhat takes you back in time,
Yeah, it's a different feel there. It is a really different feel for anyone that hasn't, experienced that too. It really is like you go back in time, right? It's crazy.
Yeah. They just shot, what is it, the 1883? I may be butchering the name, but the Yellowstone guys were down there filming last time.
Right. There. I'm excited for that. That's about the new season's about to come out, isn't it? That's what I heard.
Yeah. That's another thing. Like Taylor Sheridan and what he's doing for that industry, the performance horse industry, just the Western lifestyle, is really cool to see. It's really, he bought the 4.6s. He's got a place out there at Silverado. That's actually where the last cutting I was at. He put that on, and it's cool to see a guy like that who's passionate about it, doing what he's doing.
Yeah, no, it is. It is cool to shed light on it. It's funny. I remember, when I told you pre-show, moved around a lot and grew up predominantly in Fort Worth and spent some time in Lubbock and then moved a little bit to the Midwest. But I remember when I moved to the Midwest, I was meeting new people and parents and all that good stuff. And I'd always say, yes, ma'am, no, sir, those kind of things. And they'd be like, oh, don't call me ma'am. You make me feel old. I'm like, it's just how I was raised. It's just
you don't understand. I have to.
Yeah. I got flicked on the head too many times when I was young.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. What?
Yeah, exactly, man.
It's funny. It's like you start flinching if you don't say it. But I mean, speaking of Yellowstone and stuff, you have podcasts, you have media and all this content that you've put out there. And, that does take, a lot of guts to put yourself out there like that and put out content that you're passionate about. But when did you start really saying, hey, I want to get into producing content, putting out media, doing podcasts, YouTube, all that? Like, what prompted you to do that?
Well, I think it's been like an evolution, like since I started doing it, and I got some really good advice from a guy. I was in a group called Fit for Service with Aubrey Marcus down in Austin, Texas. I don't know if you know the name Aubrey Marcus.
I do. Yep.
He's got a book.
I like him a lot. I like his stuff a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. He's really, really, that was a game changer of a year for me. So through that, there's a lot of creative people in that Fit for Service group. And I was like, shit, everybody's got a podcast, like maybe I need a podcast. And I don't know that I visited with one of his photographers, and he's like, well, shit, man, what's holding you back? Like, why don't you do it? And I was like, I don't know. And it was all the fears, like, well, what about this, and making the excuses. And he's like, shit, man. He's like, I'll tell you, you just need to do the next step. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, what's the next step? I was like, I don't know. Get some equipment. He's like, well, there you go. Do that. And then do the next step. And I was like, okay, that's very simple. And Roger that. Like, I got it, And so I did. I got some camera equipment. I got with Aubrey's camera guy that records his podcast. I'm like, hey, send me a list of what you use. Great guy, by the way. And he did. Like, email me the list of every camera, like microphone, whatever I needed. And so I ordered that. And I'm like, okay, I need to schedule my first guest, and so I did that, and I'm sure it sucked, not because of my guest, but because of me. But it went good, and it was well received, and that's what I've learned. All of those things, that the fear and the worries that were holding me back, like none of that came true. Like, if anything, there's haters out there, and they do hate, and like, I'll say, fuck them. Like, I'm okay with, I'm like, nothing against them. And I don't want to sound negative when I say that, but like, I'm okay with it. Yet it still stings, like when people hate on it. But you'll never, I say never, rarely will you hear somebody who is above you on the success ladder talking shit about you trying to do something to move up the ladder. If anything, they encourage you. And they will say, thank you for what you're doing. I respect what you're doing, and so that's why I say it's kind of been an evolution and a practice. Like, me getting on camera and talking is not a thing I like to do. I'm an introvert by nature. Like, I would rather spend time at my ranch by myself than to, like, one-on-one, I'm good. But when we get a group of people, I'm out.
Yeah. It's, there's a lot to be said about that. The whole damned if you do, damned if you don't. Guess what? Like, people are going to judge you if you don't do it, and they're going to judge you if you do. And there's I heard this thing, and I think it pertains to anything, like, eating healthy and getting fit is hard, but so is being fat and overweight. Like,
I love that, dude. Yeah.
Like, yeah, there's complications that come with being fat and overweight and out of shape. That is hard. Diabetes, doctor's visits, not being able to move well, or whatever it may be. And it's hard to go and be disciplined and do those things. So pick your hard, which one is it?
That's so true. I'm reading a book right now called Atomic Habits. I think James Clear wrote it.
Yep.
And I think I'm listening to it and I'm reading it at the same time, which is interesting. But I think I just listened to that part where he talked about that. It's like that guy that's fitting in shape. It's hard in the moment, and the results are delayed. But the guy that's fat and obese, it's easy in the moment, but harder in the long run.
Yeah.
So like you said, pick your heart.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said about that. And I think there's a lot to be said too for being authentic and for, being vulnerable. I feel like there is, especially for men, a facade that sometimes we put on that vulnerability is a weakness, and rub some dirt in it, don't show your emotions, which I think there's a lot to be said for that. I think there's still positives in that for certain situations, but there's a lot of power in being able to actually speak how you're feeling, say how you're feeling, not afraid to cry, those kind of things, bottling stuff and pushing it down. It's all going to come out one way or another, whether it's trying to drown it in booze and women, or whether it's trying to do or whether you just feel unrest inside because you're pushing so much emotion down. So I think there's a lot of power in that. And I know I went through a lot of that too. So I always try and speak on the power of being vulnerable and being your true self.
How do you do that? I mean, I agree with everything you just said, but how do you do that? How do you be authentic? Because I believe it's a practice.
Dude, it's every day.
Yeah.
And
because everybody, you want to present your perfect self. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's one of those things too that I'm like, yeah, man, I'm such a hypocrite. I preach this stuff all the time, and someone probably saw me drunk on Broadway the other night, right? Like, it's one of those things. It's like, it's a constant every single day, like preaching what we were saying earlier. It's about the journey. It's something that you have to, and awareness, like you said earlier too. I think that it's the worst whenever you aren't aware of how you're behaving and how your behavior and how your thought processes and how your habits are affecting your life. Mm-hmm. If you're aware of it and you're still doing it, all right, whatever. I mean, you make your own decisions, right? But at least you're aware. I think a lot of people get caught in the place where they've had this pattern of life for so long, and then they turn around and they're like, what the hell just happened? Like, how did I get here? And, my hope is that I can help some people step back, look at themselves from a third party perspective sometimes, and like look at their life and say, okay, is this actually who I am? Is this actually what I want? Am I doing this to please my parents? Am I doing this because I'm scared? Those are the questions I had to ask myself too when I had the identity crisis. And I just feel like not enough people ask themselves those questions sometimes.
Man, I agree with you 100%. So when did you start getting into that? When did you start getting into the awareness practices?
I think it was, really when I lost what I thought was part of my identity, being an athlete. I got into med device sales, and that's a whole different thing, being in the OR with a patient on the table. And I'm like, man, I thought I knew anxiety until now. And, so that was like the first taste of, being on your own and having that anxiety of wanting to perform at a different level, and something that was new, something that didn't feel like second nature.
Are you still doing that now?
No, I don't. I do IT stuff now, IT solutions.
Oh, right on.
Yep. So that's really what brought me to Nashville actually too. But it's just one of those things, and that's where the podcast grew from. It was like, man, for a while I've had these things, and I know they're true to me, but no one else does. And where have I fallen short to try and help other people? And in turn, when I did that, man, it helped me tenfold, like we said earlier.
Yeah.
Did you have a specific moment kind of where the light bulb went off and you were like, man, I need to stop living this way?
Well, I thought, so I told you I went through that dark time, and I started reading the books and doing the things. And I thought I was doing the things, and it was a couple of moments with some friends, like old friends. And I was talking about whatever I had learned or read. And he's like, yeah, but you don't act any different. I was like, well, what do you mean? And at first my ego didn't like it. And, but it made me stop and think. And I was like, well, fuck, maybe he's right. and I would journal about it. And then there was another friend, another time, and I would say something about helping other people and providing value. And he's like, well, what are you doing about it? And I was like, oh, fuck, good point. Like, yeah, of course I have rental properties and I'm providing value to people with, housing and things like that. But I wasn't doing what the idea that was in my head, or the thoughts that were in my head were for this show and for, producing content and stuff. And so that was kind of what triggered, some of it, like those, what they had said, like in the like playing in the back of my head,
Yeah, that's a bit. It's good to have people like that in your corner, that call you out on the BS, right?
Man.
You got
that,
to.
Man, it just happened to me last week at that horse show. It was, I wasn't showing, but I have a 3-year-old going to futurity, so I was there practicing, and my trainer called me out on some of my mindset things. I was being somewhat negative, and anyway. I'm trying to think of how to not make that a long story. It was what I needed to hear. I'll say that. And I thanked him for it afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big part of it. Like we said earlier, it's everyday processes, and we're here, speaking it because we know that there's value in it, but at the same time, it's stuff that we have to tell ourselves every single day. And that's what I try to build with the community, and what you're building with, Converse Cowboy, is building a community to be able to have that value with other people that really care about you. And they know that, hey, get your shit together. Like, no, we're not thinking that way, or no, we're not going down that road. And that accountability, like there's power in numbers. And I think that's another big part of it is having those people in your corner and surrounding yourself with the right kind of people to be able to call you out on that stuff.
100%. And to be able to hold yourself accountable without judgment. That was something I used to do a lot. I would judge myself as a piece of shit or not good enough, for why am I doing this? Why am I still doing this? Whatever it may be. Yeah. So to be able to look at that objectively and observe myself, almost like remove myself from myself and look back and be able to observe and pivot or hold myself accountable, that's a practice. But I think those things, I think meditation, I think journaling, breath work, all of those things assist in us being able to do that.
Yep. I agree. They're all little tools, because I hate talking about certain things and saying, oh, meditation is going to change everything for you, right? It's a tool in your tool bag that helps. You get anxious, you can do some diaphragmatic breathing, right? Like there's, you need to shut your mind off. You can do meditation. Like they're all little tools that compile, one drop into the ocean of the total. But yeah, it's definitely a daily battle. You do these posts, right, with signs, and there was one that I saw, and I'm pretty sure this is right. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but to succeed in life, you need 2 things: ignorance and confidence. Yeah. I really like that. That stuck out to me big time. Because
I think that was Einstein that said that.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a real good one. It feels like people want to put you in a box sometimes, right?
Oh, yeah.
I see J.R. Smith out there, playing golf and going back to college after he has all the money in the bank possible. And why does he want to go take geometry or whatever he's taking? And why is he playing golf when he's, got rings in the NBA? And that was just one of those things that I was like, man, good for him. He's not letting people put him in a box of who he is.
Of a label. Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think, social conditioning and society has a lot to do with it. We see what everybody else is doing. We hear the advice from parents and teachers, and you go to school, you get a job, this is what you are. And if you stray from that, well, then you're different. You're not normal. It's out of the ordinary. Well, fuck that. Like, I want to just say fuck. I almost named the show, talking about names of the show, I almost named it Fuck the Status Quo. That was one of the names on the short, that made the short list too. Forgot about
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Be unique.
Yeah. The thing with journaling too, though, that I think is powerful is, you spoke about like judging yourself. And I think we all do that at some point or another, right? We feel shame or we judge ourselves for decisions we made in the past. And, we look at our life and we're like, man, why am I here? And why couldn't I be there? And, we look at other people around us too, but journaling is one of those things that I've been able to look back and look at when I feel that way and start reading some of the stuff that I was going through, 2 years ago, and like little excerpts from times in my life where I wrote down a certain goal that I have achieved now or something like that. It's good to put your life in perspective. And when you have it in a journal and you have it on paper, it makes it really tangible for you to see those results and be able to look at more of the big picture instead of just, oh, what is my problems right now?
Yeah, 100%. Anytime you look back at that stuff, or you read a book, you read a book again that you read before, and you read the same words, but it hits you in a different way because you're in a different place. You see it through a different lens,
Yeah. Speaking of that, I know Tim Ferriss loves to ask this question. I love listening to your show too, but what are some of your favorite books? You've mentioned a lot of books. Like, what are some, if just right off the top of the head, that have really made an impact on you?
Man, yeah, I get that question more than any. Actually, I like a lot of Stoic philosophy. Anything by Ryan Holiday. The Daily Stoic was a good one. That one's an easy for anybody that wants to read and like wants to get into that stuff. That's easy because it's like one page a day, and he gives like the Stoic version, and then he gives the modern day version right below it, like the translation almost. Have you read that?
Yeah, that's a good one to do like in the mornings.
Exactly. And that's when I read, is in the mornings. That's, I would say, like anybody wanting to get into reading, select the time that works for you. For me, it's mornings. The Obstacle is the Way. Anything by Tim Ferriss. Tribe of Mentors, 4-Hour Work Week. I'll say this one. I'm in real estate, and this is a real estate book by Robert Kiyosaki called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But it's more of a mindset book than a real estate book. Like he's going to give you some stuff about real estate, kinda. He's not going to tell you how to buy it, but it's more of a mindset shift. And have you read it?
Yes. Yeah, it was one of my first finance kind of base level finance books, really.
Yeah.
It paints a good story. I think everyone should read that, just understanding assets and liabilities and those kind of things.
Yeah. And then I'll say one more. The very first book I read, like in the self-help realm, is How to Win Friends and Influence People. And man, that one still sticks with me today. So
that's a good one. That's definitely a good one. Do you do you write down goals, and like what are your goals for the podcast, for the show, for yourself? Where do you see yourself in the next year?
Man, that's such a good I used to, yes. Like, of course, I have vision boards and I have things that I think about and I want to manifest. And I used to be way more money focused, if that makes sense. And even in baseball, I'd have goals of what I wanted to do every year. I don't know. I think words are important. I say the word intention now. Like my intentions, I write them down in the evenings. Like I keep a gratitude journal and I'll write down like things I want to manifest, and I'll put it in the context like it has already happened, and I'll feel it like it has already happened. And that may be woo-woo to some people. It may totally resonate with others, but there's something real about it. It's like keeping one foot in the metaphysical and one foot in this world, that we live in, and somewhere in the middle is the balance. And so, yeah, of course, I write stuff down. I know I kind of dodged your question.
Yeah, no, you're fine. I know you did like a songwriting challenge too. Hey,
you did your homework, man.
Did the journaling side of things, did that help like when you're writing songs, and how is that different but kind of similar? Like how was that experience on writing songs?
Yeah, I'll first preface my answer by saying I'm not a songwriter and not giving anybody advice on that. But like, I don't know, my journal was different. I didn't get anything from my journal for the songs I was writing. I would like, if something hit me, I listen to a lot of Guy Clark's, like Guy Clark's my guy, right? Like no pun intended, but like that's my go-to. And I listened to a lot of his stuff while I was doing that challenge. And I would just pull like different like ways he would ride, or, you know, what I would think he was doing. And or if an idea hit me, I'd write it down throughout the week. And some weeks I would start on a Monday and I would release them every Sunday. And then some days I wouldn't start till Saturday morning or Sunday morning. But no, the journaling didn't cross over.
Yeah. What is your definition?
Consciously.
Yeah.
Maybe subconsciously they did, but
yeah, no, for sure. This is a question I'll ask everybody, and it's always different, but what does your definition of success look like?
That's a good question. I've thought about it before. I think when you can do your best and you can know you've done your best at whatever it is that fills you up, like that is success to me.
Yeah.
That may be a weird answer, but I truly believe that. Like when you can look back at the end of the day, I've started doing this as another practice. Like I'll look back at the end of the day and I'll say, okay, what did I do good? What could I have done better? What did I do that I didn't want to do? You know, and just kind of fine tune that. And for the next day, hopefully make some changes, pivot, create better habits, lose bad habits. And so that is success. I don't know that money is a metric that we're taught is success. The cars are a metric, the houses. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I don't see I want to make as much damn money as I can.
Yeah, of
but
course.
Like, that's not, so yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say money can't buy you happiness. I think money can buy you a lot of things that will lead to things that you enjoy, like horses. I like to ride really nice horses. Well, guess what? You got to have a lot of money to buy
You do.
And so I don't know. I think like when you can find the thing that you really love to do and other people value that enough to pay you money, then you win. You win. And you're good enough, you know, like that's success, I think. Yeah. But I think where people get it wrong is when they chase the money, they chase the dollar, and what they really want to do takes a back seat. I don't care how much money they make. That's not success, in my opinion. They have a lot of money. They have a big bank account, but that's not success.
Yeah, they're miserable most of the time.
Yeah. That's
powerful. Well, Mike, thank you so much for joining the show. I know I mentioned it a little bit, but tell everybody where they can find you online and where they can find all your content.
Yeah, all the places, theconversecowboy.com, at theconversecowboy on Instagram, Facebook, same thing. And then on YouTube, the Converse Cowboy YouTube channel. There
it is, plain and simple. Well, Mike, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was great to have you. I mean, I'm excited to watch your journey, you know, as we continue to go down this road.
Thank you, brother. Well, I'm glad to have crossed paths with you and look forward to seeing what you have coming out. So thanks again for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for joining another episode of the Breathe and Air podcast, where everyday action meets extraordinary mindset. Guys, if you're listening on Apple, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Let us know what you thought about the show. I'm sure Mike would love to hear it, and I would too. So reach out to us and let us know what you think. If there was something that was profound to you, we'd both love to talk to you. And if you got one thing out of this, then go utilize it in your day-to-day lives. Don't just let it be motivation. Go ahead and utilize it and put it into action and share it with a friend. That's all we ask. So Mike, thank you so much. It was a pleasure. You guys have a good rest of your week.